Hi, it's Nell, and this is one of my very favorite agaves. It is Spider Agave, Squid Agave, Candelabrum Agave. It goes by a few common names, but I just love it. But it started to mush out in the desert. What? Stick around. I'm going to tell you what happened to it. I'm going to tell you all about it, which isn't much because it's like most agaves, it's easy as can be to grow. And I'm also going to repot it. Okay, before we get set up over at the work table, I'll just tell you what's going on with this plant. We had a period of rain. It's called the monsoons here. It would rain and then not rain, and it rains really heavy and all kind of crazy. And what happened to this plant, which is actually, these are two babies off of my mother plant that I had in Santa Barbara, which is still there happily growing. But you can see here, those leaves there, they're still a little bit soft. They were really soft. But what happened was this plant has been in the pot for probably almost a year and a half or 2 years. Soil has gone down and the plant has sunk a bit. So you can see, I can stick my finger in there. So what happened was it's just down below the edge of the pot there. It's sunk down in, so the water was just sort of all holding in there. And the plant itself is really sturdy and fine, so I just need to cut those leaves off and repot it, and it'll be even happier. And this is the mother plant of the Spider Agave. You can see how it's just spreading all over the place. Ooh, I haven't watered this plant in a while, and the leaves that I'm taking off are just as mushy as can be. Crazy, huh? So I'm gonna get the rest of these off before I get it out of the pot. I'm taking off some of those lower leaves, and here you can see that they are quite wet still, even though I haven't watered it since the last rain. And it's been warm. I had to go in and wash my hands because those leaves had a very pungent smell. It was sort of like mezcal, tequila. It did have a different smell. Not bad, just different. So I have my succulent mix in here. I'm using straight succulent mix for this with a little bit of compost and worm compost. And a good easy way, if you have some kind of a tool when you're repotting, is to take it and go, okay, so the soil, the top of the plant is there, and just put it on the top of the soil. And that tells me that I need to put in about 2 or 3 more inches of soil. And I'm using this weeding tool to go around and just loosen the plant away from the side of the pot, because I do want to save this pot. I have some small sansevierias inside that I want to, I'm going to put 1 or 2 of these in here. So this one I do want to save. This is not coming out as easy as I hope, but because we're friends, I thought, well, you might as well watch me struggle and do this. But this is Agave bracteosa, and it's a fabulous one. I love it. The plant gets about 2 feet by 2 feet, but then it will spread by underground rhizomes that pop up and new plants appear. So it spreads, and this is where these 2 plants came off of. It came off of the mother plant. It takes a while to get going, but once it gets going, it really does put out a lot of these babies. And I think that's true of most agaves, is that they aren't really rapid growers. But I love the twisted foliage. Over time, the foliage gets a little bit twisted and it gets a really interesting shape. That's why it's called Spider Agave, or it's also called calamari agave, squid agave. And it takes a little bit. Oh my God, there's a June bug on the camera. That's that buzzing noise. Hold on. Hello, you're right here. Move, move, move. Oh. If you notice, the cicadas have gone away, because when I first started filming here, the cicadas were so loud. But there's a stray June bug or two, and that one landed right on the camera. But this plant takes full sun someplace on the coast here. Here in the desert, I'm going to give it a bit of afternoon shade because the leaves are thinner than most agaves. I haven't ever grown it here, so I'm not quite sure, so that's what I'm going to do. But actually mine in Santa Barbara, California, was growing in afternoon shade, and the sun is a lot less intense there, and it's a lot cooler. Now in terms of water, you don't need to water it too often. It's drought tolerant. Like anything, if it's in a container, it's going to need watering more often. If it's in more sun, it's going to need watering more often. If it's hot, it's going to need watering more often. I will probably water this one because the leaves are a little thinner than most agaves. I will probably water this one about every 2 to 3 weeks in this container. And it's in straight succulent mix with some compost. I don't know if I said that already, but it's hot and it's the end of the day. So it's got a little bit of worm compost in there too, but it just needs to drain out really well. So in terms of hardiness for a succulent, this one is fairly hardy because it can go to 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. So it'll be just fine out here all year long. And in terms of pests, I haven't ever seen it with any. So if anybody has, let me know, but I don't think so. I don't think it's a concern at all for this plant. And it does flower, but it's very infrequent. It just sends up a tall spike. Mine only flowered one time in the whole time it was planted, and I think it was planted, I owned that house for 10 years, and I planted it the second year I was there, so for 8 years it only bloomed one time. So the main draw, of course, is this wacky fun foliage. Okay, so I have it all loosened. The roots were all the way down to the bottom. It's not a solid root ball, as you can see. It just all kind of fell apart. And even though it's very dry, the leaves were mushing out. Interesting, huh? This plant has a few uses. It's great in containers. It's a great container plant. It can be used in like a rock garden kind of a thing, in garden beds. It combines beautifully with other succulents, and it can even be used by the sea and by the pool. Okay, so it kind of surprised me that it had no root ball, but that just meant I had to add more soil into the pot because there wasn't anything keeping it together, as you can see. But that's okay because it kind of allows me to separate these two plants a bit so they can grow on their own. And I'm gonna plant them so they sort of angle out a little bit, so they aren't like this here or at the very edge of the pot. They'll just be tilted that way. It's all done, and now these spider agaves have plenty of room to grow, and they will eventually start to make some babies of their own. But this cactus, which I don't know what kind it is because I don't know my cactus yet, was in a pot with a barrel cactus, and it just looked kind of funny, just the two of them growing there. So I put it in here, and I had to stake it because that's the thing about succulent mix, is it's very light. So if you get something heavier, it doesn't hold it up. So you might have to stake it, or I also put a rock behind it to anchor it up until it gets rooted in. Okay, so here it is right off of my kitchen, and I'm going to tell you why I love this plant, why it's so cool. Well, it is cool, that's why I love it. And it's got some cool names too. But it is an agave that is spineless, and it doesn't have sharp tips that just dig into you whenever you try to work around it or transplant it, so it's very user friendly. And also, it's a great container plant. It's an agave that does fabulously in containers, and it is one of the agaves that does not die after it flowers, making it a wonderful plant for my garden and perhaps yours too. Well, I hope you have found this video to be helpful. I thank you for all your likes and your subscribes and your comments. I appreciate them. And come back, I have a lot more gardening videos coming your way about all kinds of things garden related. And speaking of the garden, let's get out in the garden and make the world a more beautiful place. Now there's a fly flying around me. I got rid of the June bug. So as always, I thank you so much for watching. I'm going to head to the pool and I will see you in the next video. Bye.